What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Tesla stock, ticker symbol TSLA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Tuesday, March 19th. Alright guys, Tesla stock here today is up $10.23 a share. That's plus 6.25% in regular trading hours. Of course, we've received news that Tesla will be raising the price of their Model Y. The stock is essentially flat, down about a quarter as of right now in after hours. But listen, as always, whether a stock is moving in your favor or against you in after hours, see how that volume is almost non-existent, at least comparatively speaking? Take after hours with a grain of salt. All right, let's get started here on Tesla today with our daily ritual. It's going to be important today. Our volume profile analysis here on the 5-minute chart. What we're trying to do here is pull out any bias, some invisible bias, so to speak, that isn't easily observable based on the price movement alone, or really it's not observable much at all on the price movement alone. So what do we need here to do that? We need three things. We need changes, obvious changes more so, in volume, okay, and that needs to correlate with obvious changes in stock price, which we'll circle here in a second, and it all needs to be outside of the context, or more so the volume, of what is typically expected during that time of day. Okay, so for example, there's a higher expectation of volume at the opening bell compared to 12:30 in the afternoon. So the obvious moves that I want to look at is this kind of dump off the open to intraday lows, and then, you know, of course, this big upside move that we got kind of mid-morning. The rest of the day was really a lot of consolidation, so I'm really truly only interested in those two moves. Let's take a look here. This open, first of all, was very contextual. If we look at that volume bar off the open, it wasn't even 5 million shares. On Friday, we got nearly 6 million shares off the open. Very contextual. So this open, to me, there's really no bias that's at least outside of what's typically expected on an opening bar. So, you know, bears, I apologize. I wish I had better news, but that's the truth. So I guess I'm not really sorry about it. Just playing bears. We'll talk about what you guys are looking for here once we get to the charts. But on this upside move, or the longer term charts with the levels, right? On this upside move that we got, that really aggressive move from intraday lows to intraday highs, which is really an aggressive move. I mean, from the bottom to that intraday high there, that was about a 5% move, okay, inside of about an hour and a half. Now, if we look at the volume profile on this, I mean, this is very obvious. You guys know I'm always looking for consecutive candles with relatively consistent elevated volume, or I suppose you could say ascending volume, okay? At least assuming that by the time you finish, you've had a few consecutive candles that are outside of the context of what is typically expected. And that's what we have here. There's a pretty clear, you know, is it the craziest bias we've ever seen on a chart? Of course not, but this is a pretty clear bullish bias in the underlying volume profile here, leaning in the bullish direction on that upside move. Now, which is great if you're a bull. By the way, that's not, you know, it's actually less common that is the case on bullish moves like this. A lot of people assume that that's always the case. They're like, well, yeah, it's an aggressive bullish move. Of course, there's going to be a bias. That's actually not always the case at all. So to see confirmation that there was underlying bias in the volume profile, it's not a bad thing to see. Okay, now let's move on to our self-fulfilling prophecy psychological levels here on the 30-minute chart that I'm watching very closely on Tesla come tomorrow. By the way, listen, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. My goal here is to hit 6,000 by market open this next Monday here. We just blew away our 5,000 goal. So thank you guys for that. But again, if you have not done so, please subscribe. I appreciate it. All right. Now, if you caught the weekend video here on Tesla, we had talked about how we had just barely claimed that 50 period in the after hours. We didn't even really do it intraday on Friday. So come Monday here, now today, we were really looking for confirmation, or if you're a bear, we were looking for a crack back downside to really show that, hey, when the volume pours in, we're not ready to reclaim that 50 period here on the 30-minute. But here today, okay, Monday, we got a big reclaim of, you know, we held not only the 50, but we also reclaimed the 200 period. We popped up through on high volume. We got a lower volume retest. We got close. It wasn't perfectly clean, but it almost never is. Okay. And then, ideally I would have loved to see bigger volume on that bounce away. But to be fair, it wasn't a real retest to begin with. So, you know what? That consolidation is fine. But the truth is, for this to be a perfect reclaim, we would have seen a nice clean retest and then bigger volume on the pull away. So bulls, just be aware of that. Tomorrow, bulls, you guys are going to want to see a hold of not only the 200 period on any back test, okay, but ideally this 50 period would cross above the 200 period and add a more aggressive rising psychological barrier back to the downside. Bears, your ideal scenario tomorrow really would not only be to crack down below the 200, but ideally this 50, because I expect this 50 to continue to rise, making the necessary downside move to crack below both of them smaller. Okay, so bears, a downside break through both of those on big volume would be your ideal scenario here come Tuesday. Now, let's move on here to the 4-hour chart and take a look. It is very much so in play today. It actually looks to be somewhat of the culprit here today for putting the move to an end. We basically got rejected, or at least held up by that 50 period here on the 4-hour chart. It's rather obvious into the close. So, again, it was a 6% day. That's not a bad thing. That just happened to be the case today. But bulls, here tomorrow, ideal scenario, big upside, high volume break, low volume retest, and then high volume confirmation, reclaiming that 50 period here on the 4-hour chart, reclaiming that as support. Now you bears, we're basically right up against it. So you guys just want to see a hard rejection. It doesn't have to be 10%, okay? But a hard rejection throughout the day and hold below throughout the day. Right, I'm never talking on breaks and rejections. I'm never talking like 8 minutes. Okay, I'm talking hours ideally, holding above that level or below that level to really show a big sample size coming in, a big sample size of opinion, thinking the same thing in that particular moment. But bears, a big kind of continuation of today's late day price action, a rejection off that 50 period on as much volume as possible, and then holding beneath there is your ideal scenario here come Tuesday. And really that's all that's contextual to the 4-hour chart. So let's move on to what's most important here, the big picture, what has the most eyeballs and paints the clearest image heading into tomorrow. If there's one chart that you do not skip, it's the daily. Now, if you guys remember on Friday, we were talking about how we had not only recently cracked down beneath that 177.50 to 180 range, but we had also recently given up that 166.50 to 167 region, okay, which was not ideal. We obviously made a big reclaim of that 166.50 to 167 region here today. Tomorrow, bulls, ideal scenario, a crack back above, I would say 177.50, but listen, understand that the ideal scenario, since that is a range of 177.50 to 180, the ideal scenario would be if you're a bull, you want to get up through and out of that range through to the other side. So a reclaim of 180 would be the best case scenario if you're a bull here tomorrow, ideally not 6 minutes before the close, but get above there as soon as possible and spend some time above there. Understand though, that's a 3.4% move, and you can't expect moves like that every single day, even if it is Tesla. Bears, pretty simple for you guys here. Any test of 177.50, you want to see a rejection, reject the lower region of that channel, I would say. And really what you have your eye on is that 166.50 to 167 region. But again, understand that's 4.25% downside move away, which is not, a small day, even for Tesla. Now, time for my favorite part of the video here. We can really pull some bias. What were the options traders thinking as they position themselves today heading into tomorrow, Tuesday? We can pull some bias out of the chain. 1.96 million total contracts traded. That's a big sample size. That's good. 1.13 million of those were calls and 835,000 of those were puts. So we are seeing a slight call side bias here. It's not overwhelming. It's not double, but there is a call side bias on the overall ratio here. Now, what I'm most interested in, being that the context of this video is looking ahead toward Tuesday, that short-term speculator delta range of 0 to 20, we had about 430,000 calls and about 348,000 puts. So again, not ridiculously overwhelming, but not only are we seeing a slight call side bias on the overall ratio, we're also seeing a slight call side bias on the short-term speculator call put ratio. Listen, if your goal here is to try to expedite the process of trading, whether it be part-time or even going full-time eventually, I very much so encourage you to come join our Roensch Capital Gold server. You can find that at the link in the pinned comment. every day I'm working with that group, not only Platinum members, but everybody else as well. Platinum is the one-on-one coaching members that I do work with. And then I'm also sending out my daily scalp setup alerts, in-play stock setup alerts in real time. So those are alerting to stocks that, you know, I as a trader would call in play, meaning has a lot of attention of traders around the world at this very moment. And I'm also doing unusual options activity alerts every day. Swing trade alerts, swing trade setup alerts, I should say, when they come around, when I'm interested. So if you join at the current rate, you'll be grandfathered in at that rate, no matter what the price raises to in the future, which it has gone up consistently over the last 3 years. So hope to see you join. But listen, as I always say, you can absolutely learn how to trade for free. This could just be a helpful tool to help you try to expedite that process if that is your goal. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.